Okay, so since we've been on for 5 seconds, I still don't have a picture up yet. It still says waiting on me at 141. It says I've been on for 18 seconds. There we go. Okay. All right. So today I have to open up, if I could get it turned the right way, I have Titano versus the Flash from the DC Multiverse line. Just says Titano versus the Flash. Doesn't say anything about it. I was pretty sure that this was from the Justice League versus Godzilla story, but it doesn't say anything about that on the box here. And I haven't read that comic, so I don't know if this is the artwork from that comic or not. But I do know a few things that make this a strange pack. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, and you've probably seen me mention this because I've had this for a while and I've mentioned it a few times. And you know, when I say Flash versus Titano, I usually have like a slight bit of derisiveness about it because there's just a few reasons to that. And one of which is that the Flash is a character that has one of the best rogues gallery in all of comics. Like the Flash, has such a great assortment of villains. And I mentioned before my admiration for that particular group of villains. I think that's like a really great, like probably the best group of villains in all of comics is Batman or Spider-Man. It's probably one of those two. But whichever one of those is number one, I think that the Flash would probably be a close third place. That's at least. There's other heroes that have great rogues galleries, like Superman's got a lot of great villains. Captain America's got a lot of great villains. But the Flash, I think, has the most consistent, like most of the villains of the Flash of the Silver Age. All of those are great. Like there's Captain Cold, Captain Boomerang, a lot of captains for. You don't see that many captains as villains, but most of them are with the Flash, honestly. You got Heat Wave, you got the Top, you got the Pied Piper. But I'd say the top three Flash villains, I've always said this. The top three. One of these guys is the arch nemesis. I could go with any of these. You got Captain Cold, you got the Reverse Flash, and you've got Gorilla Grodd. Now, I think most people these days would probably say the Reverse Flash. I think that he's probably at this point cemented his place as being like the number one. I think most people would probably concur with that. He's not my most favorite. My most favorite is Captain Cold still. But honestly, I kind of feel like the guy who really should take the top spot, who really should have been more pushed as the Flash's arch nemesis, is Gorilla Grodd. So here we got a 2-pack of the Flash against a simian adversary. And it's not Gorilla Grodd, it's Titano. Titano, who is a Superman villain. People keep wanting to have the Flash fight Superman villains as if he ain't got enough villains of his own. Like they made that Flash movie a couple of years back, and who do they pick to be the main villain of it? Not the Reverse Flash, not Captain Cold, not Gorilla Grodd, not even the Pied Piper or the Top or somebody like. No, the arch villain was General Zod. General Zod, the villain that people often complain is overused in the Superman movies. A Superman villain that people think is in too many Superman movies. They put him into a Flash movie. What's going on with that? That's pretty crazy, right? So here we got we got a 2-pack of the Flash versus a giant simian adversary, and they go with Titano. I don't know what the thought process is. I haven't read this comic, like I said. So I don't know. Maybe there is like a really cool fight scene between the Flash and Titano. Maybe Todd just really wanted to make a figure of a bionic monkey, and like Cygor is one of his characters. Maybe he just really wanted to do that, and they were already going to put Superman in the 2-pack with Godzilla because he wanted to have Superman with Godzilla and Batman with Kong. So that's how that's going to work. So who are we going to put in with Titano? Just put the Flash in there. Whatever. I don't know what the thought process was, but it's an odd thought process to me. Now, the other thing, again, having not read this comic, I am not at all familiar with this version of Titano where he's got all these cybernetic parts to him. It looks like he's got like a at least partially bionic hand, at least like the thumb and the forefinger, and he's got like some cybernetics around his eyes, and I'm not sure what the deal is with that. A little I'm not sure if that's cybernetics or that's just a scar where you can see like some of the meat or the blood or something like that. And the inside of his mouth is green. But remember that Titano was mutated by kryptonite, so he's got kryptonite radiation in him. So it kind of makes sense to me that Titano would be would have some glowing green elements to him. It makes sense. It makes sense that. But I'm not sure why Titano is bionic in this version. I'm not sure if this is an alternate universe or maybe Titano has suffered some injuries. And this might not be just limited to the Godzilla comic book. It might be something that's in the mainstream DC universe, and I just haven't seen it. And I don't see any indications on here. I don't see any mention of Toho, or I don't see any mention of Legendary Films. So I'm guessing they probably just kept any kind of. I like I said, I'm pretty sure this is from the comic book, the Godzilla versus Justice League comic book. But I'm pretty sure they just, since this is technically 2 DC characters, they just left any mention of any of those Toho characters off, so that way they wouldn't have to pay a little bit of extra money on this particular 2-pack. But it is supposed to be from the same series, I believe, as Superman versus Godzilla that I already opened, and Batman versus Kong, and I believe there's another set that's Wonder Woman versus Godzilla. And I think that's all of them. So let's go ahead and get them out of the package. Bobby Wald says that's just King Kong with the fur falling off the animatronics. Yeah, well, it makes as much sense as any other theory, right? And you can see there's the typical DC stuff on the inside, that blue logo. See, we're not done with Mcfarlane yet. We still got plenty of Mcfarlane stuff to open up. We're going to be talking about Mcfarlane for a while. Let's get this off. Oh, one other thing I should mention. I wasn't originally intending on buying this set. I like, because like I said, I'm more old school. If it was a more old school Titano, I probably would have been more excited about it, but I'm not that interested in bionic Titano. But I'd like to point out that I got this set at Ross for $9. That's why I bought this. I decided $9. I couldn't say no to it, And I mean, hell, like I want to say that the just single carded figures they have at Ross are like $12, $13. So yeah, it's $9. It's worth it for the Flash figure alone. So we're going to talk about that. And we already kind of talked about this Flash figure because it reuses the same body from the Rebirth Wally West and God, what do you call it? The Titans Wally West figure that came out a while back, which is probably my favorite Flash figure that Mcfarlane has done, at least out of the ones I've opened up so far. I do still have the Silver Age Flash. Maybe I should open him on the next episode. But this is a pretty nice Flash figure, and especially if you're a fan of Barry's design from the New 52 or the Rebirth comics, and I don't think that's a bad design. The only thing that really bothers me about it is I've never been a fan of this little chin strap on here, and I think they put that on there because like they want to put it on the live action Flash. Like it works on the Grant Gustin Flash costume, but I don't think it works as well in a comic book as it works in live action. Yesterday when Raheem was on here, and he was talking about how the blue and gray Batman works better in the comics than it works in live action, or than it would work in live action. And that was when we got into that discussion where we're like, yeah, certain things work better in like, I think that no matter what color you like to think of Batman in your brain as being in real, like in your what he would look like in real life, like blue and gray is the best colors for Batman and on the comic book page because it pops. Like I want you to think about Batman the animated series and how he had what's supposed to be a black and gray costume, but they put blue highlights on it and it helps it pop. And then when they went to the new Batman Adventures design, Bruce Timm decided to drain all the color out of the suit. So he had this kind of beige utility belt and he had gray highlights on like the cape, cowl, boots, gloves, all that kind of stuff. And it did not work as well. It did not look as good as it did with the blue, which is why in Justice League, they went back to blue. So even if it's supposed to be black, and I'd argue a lot of the times in the comic books that this design of a Batman costume is actually supposed to be a black and gray costume. Like literally that's what it's supposed to be. I would argue. But coloring it in blue makes it look better on the comic book page. Likewise, I think a lot of this stuff that they did for the New 52, not just for the Flash, but for all the DC superheroes in general, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I think they were doing because of the Injustice video game, which was coming out at the time, and because of the live action movies. Like, I kind of figure they probably knew they were taking the trunks off of him in off of Superman and Man of Steel, and that was probably one of the reasons that they were a little emboldened to take the trunks off him in the comic books finally. Although I suspect a lot of that is like legal reasons too. For example, I kind of feel like that was one of those things where that was kind of part of the stuff that the Siegel family got when they got a lot of those rights back to Superman. Probably the trunks were one of those things. And that's why they tried to redesign Superman's entire costume a little bit, because, they wanted something that wasn't so similar to what he wore in Action Comics #1. I think eventually they realized that New 52 Superman merchandise did not sell as well as classic Superman suit merchandise. So they decided it was probably worth it just to give the Siegels the extra money. And good for the Siegels. I'm glad that they got that extra money. So like I said, this reuses like pretty much the entire body of the Rebirth Wally West figure, and that was reused on that Titans Wally West figure. So it's got a different head. There's the head, and this one to me looks more like Barry Allen. Like, to me, sometimes you can have these heads that look more like Wally, if that makes sense, or they look like they could be either one. This one to me solidly looks like Barry. I would not confuse that with anybody else. And one of the things that irritates me about when they brought Barry back is they brought Barry back and then they started writing him like he was Wally West. And it's like, well, what's even the point of that? Just if you're writing him to be like Wally West, it's because you think Wally West is a better character, a more interesting character to write. But instead, you're bringing back Barry Allen and you're trying to make him into Wally West when you could just use Wally West. And again, I suspect that that's because of, they had this live action Flash movie in development at that time, and they probably figured, well, we're going to use Barry in it. We should have Barry in the comics. And that's what happened. So yeah, there's you a good look at the Flash figure. We're going to set him aside for the moment. I'm going to come back to him. I want to get Titano out of the package here. And he just Flash didn't really have that many rubber tabs around, the regular amount, like a couple around the ankles, couple around the wrists, and then run around the waist. It's pretty easy to get him out of there. Plus, he wasn't like posed in the package at all, since I guess because of the nature of this, they just wanted to have that sort of vanilla pose, maybe because it takes up less space than a fancy running pose like they try to usually do with the Flash in these packages. All right, so we're trimming. We got rubber tabs around each of his arms and each of his ankles, and these are like double rubber tabs. It looks like we got 2 double rubber tabs, so quadruple rubber tabs around his waist here. All right, so we got that off. And Titano does. I'm keep wanting to call him Grodd because he's in a package with the Flash. This is not Grodd. This is Titano, allegedly. And you can see he's got a couple of scars across his chest, and they've healed up green. And yeah, I'm guessing that's because of that kryptonite energy that is within this guy. And that, of course, like I said, that is Silver Age lore. That's always been a part of Titano. But these cybernetics are new. So he's just got like not even a whole bionic hand, but you can see he's got a cybernetic thumb and index finger, and then the cybernetic eye over here. And then he's got like upon closer inspection, he's got like a bionic elbow. A lot of these parts are just kind of random, you know. And Bobby, I think you might be onto something when you say it's just Kong, because I suspect that they might have reused some of these parts from Kong. I don't know, because I don't have the Kong figure, unfortunately. I would like to get him at some point. But yeah, I would not be surprised if some of these parts were reused back and forth. It would make sense, because like the lower half of them doesn't have any cybernetics on it whatsoever. And why bother to make an entire lower half of an ape like twice? You know what I mean? When they can just reuse the same one, it should be fine. And maybe even this arm. Well, no, I guess that's not necessarily bionics. That looks like more of a scar. That could be carried over onto Kong. I wouldn't really want to see the scars carried over back and forth between figures, though, because to me, like, you know, has he been injured like the same exact way as Kong? That seems pretty coincidental to me. But yeah, he's got a couple more of those green scars on his shoulder. And one thing that I really love about this figure, as far as the classic Silver Age lore goes, one thing that I appreciate is that if you look very closely at his head sculpt, this is not a gorilla. This is a chimpanzee that's been mutated. So he's got gorilla proportions, but that is definitely a chimpanzee head, especially if you look at the ears. That's a chimp. That's not a gorilla. So that's good. A lot of people tend to think that just because Titano's a Marvel character and a girl. A lot of people think that a Titano is a gorilla just because they see giant ape, and they I guess go to King Kong in their mind. But no, he's a chimpanzee. He's a chimpanzee. Bobby Wald says maybe that's the hand that gets the Infinity Gauntlet from that second Kong in the Godzilla movie. Yeah, it's too bad they couldn't have brought Marvel to that actually had the actual Infinity. Can you imagine what would happen if Godzilla got a hold of the Infinity Gauntlet? Godzilla would probably just eat the Infinity Gauntlet, and that'd be the end of it. I think Godzilla is powerful enough that he could do that. So let's talk about his articulation a little bit. It looks like the arms just rotate all the way around. They could have been ball joints, but they're not. So they just rotate all the way around. And then Titano's head rotates all the way around. I'm guessing that that seems like it's on more of a ball joint, actually. So we can kind of tilt his head quizzically from side to side. He can't look up and down very far because his head's set a little too low on the shoulders. But now that I notice this is a separate head, maybe even the torso was reused for Kong. I need to get the Kong figure. That gives me an excuse to get the Kong figure, right? And then his wrists rotate all the way around. That's very nice. And they're actually ball jointed. I'm very surprised by that. And then he rotates all the way around at the waist. No leg articulation whatsoever. So you know what I say about that is if you can't move its legs, it's not an action figure. It's just a statue with movable arms. So I am a little more forgiving of that on a giant monster character like this, especially one that's made out of rotocast vinyl. Very nicely made out of rotocast vinyl. And like I mentioned before in the Godzilla review, I like that Mcfarlane went with the rotocast vinyl for this, not just because I figured mainly for cost-effective reasons, but a lot of the classic toys that we got of Godzilla from Japan and going back, I think, to the 1960s, maybe even the 1950s, a lot of those toys, were made out of rotocast vinyl. So it carries on a fine tradition, does it not? And hey, since I know some of you might be wondering about it, and since I happen to have them back here, we got our Godzilla, our Mcfarlane Godzilla, and there you can see how well they scale with each other. So, and I'm gonna put the big G back in his place of honor back here. Hopefully, he won't fall over. But that fell over. I was thinking that filament looked a little precarious, but I don't really have any place to put my filament right now because I'm moving everything around. It's everything is. I'm trying to get organized. So let's see. In this little pack to the side, we have a figure stand, a typical DC figure stand with the Rebirth era DC logo embossed onto it. Again, this was typical of the figure stands that were being made around that time before they went back to the Milton Glaser DC logo. And then we got the trading cards in this plastic bubble. And I don't like it when they do this because I feel like I'm going to bend them up. And I am bending them up when I'm taking them out here. But I mean, I don't want to bend them up permanently. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and read our trading cards real quick. And you can see it did get a little warped in there. I think you can even see that on the camera. And then it says The Flash, real name Barry Allen, super speed, super endurance, and accelerated healing. He can think quickly, mapping out the potential outcomes of a situation and reading books in an instant. Can vibrate his molecular structure fast enough to pass through objects. Maybe they should have said solid objects, just to emphasize that point. I don't know. It's an okay bio. At least it describes his powers pretty well, but it doesn't mention anything about, his double life as a police scientist or, anything like that. There's a lot of other interesting tidbits about this character they could have worked on there, I think. But that's unfortunate. Okay, so let's see. Titano, real name Titano the Super Ape. Can't make this stuff up, folks. Sent on a mission to space, Toto the chimpanzee. Well, wouldn't his real name be Toto the chimpanzee then? I'm just saying. Toto the chimpanzee was exposed to uranium and kryptonite-infused radiation. When he returned to Earth, Toto grew larger than any known dinosaur and gained deadly kryptonite vision. Lois Lane renamed him Titano. Along with Superman, captured the colossal ape before he could cause any catastrophic calamities. That's a pretty good summary of the Silver Age version of the story. I'm not sure how that applies to too many modern versions of the story. The post-crisis version was definitely different because he was more a victim of definite animal experimentation, and they eliminated the kryptonite aspect of the character, which I think is unfortunate because I think that's one of the more interesting and unique aspects of Titano as a character. And I think you could have kept that and still kept the animal experimentation angle. Like if LexCorp was experimenting on Titano, then Lex surely could have used kryptonite when he was doing those experiments, right? Al Davis is here and says, hello, Alan, and hello, Bobby. So, better late than never. So yeah, we just finished talking about the Titano figure. I guess I got a couple more things I would like to say about Titano. Like I said, I would have preferred, personally, I would have preferred to have a Titano that did not have the cybernetic accoutrements. I would much rather have had just a classic Silver Age style Titano. That's just me personally. And I think Titano is usually colored brown in the comics. So I think a brown paint job, I would have liked that better than a black paint job. And I know this is from that specific comic book that I haven't read, and maybe he was actually colored black in the comic book. And if we look at the artwork here, he's definitely colored black there. But remember, when I criticize something like that, I'm criticizing the source material as well. So I'm saying in the comic book, Titano should have been brown. That's how that should have been. And it would have made him more visually distinct from Kong on the comic book page, would it have not? Bobby Watts, Sorry. Bobby Wald says hi to Al Davis. So just thought I'd acknowledge that. So other than that, he is a really nice figure. And one thing that I do like that was and you can see it in the illustration here too. One thing that I do like about this iteration of Titano and what they've done, the tweaks and artistic license and things like that, is I do really like the idea that, you know, he's got the green. Apparently his blood is green, so his scars have healed up green, and the inside of his mouth is green. And I think that that's a really nice touch. I think that's awesome. I really like that. All right, so I think that's everything I have to say about Titano for now. Maybe for the rest of the video, let's go ahead and set him aside, and we'll talk about the Flash some. Since, you know, this honestly was the main reason I bought the set, because I thought he was a really nice Flash figure. And like I said, I'm old school. I prefer like the older. Al Davis says, "Have you really just finished? Are you?" Well, no, it's a 2-pack. We got more figures to talk about. So we got. I'm sorry you didn't get the notification. That happens sometimes. But yeah, like I pretty much talked everything I need to talk about Titano. So we're halfway through. So, and like basically all I was saying was, this looks different from what I remember Titano looking like. And that's probably because that's what he looked like in this specific comic book. And, I like the Silver Age version better overall, but there are some things I like about this one, which is mainly the green aspect of it. Since he is infused with kryptonite, I think it's good to have a visual indicator of that in the character. So that was a good idea. Cybernetic kind of things, like I kind of feel like that's a little much. I'd rather he just look like a giant mutated chimpanzee with some green elements to him. So let's talk about the Flash. He's got this deep crimson costume and gold elements, and this is very reminiscent of me. For me, of the way he was colored in Justice League Animated, Justice League Unlimited, all that kind of stuff. Even though this is supposed to be Barry, and that's more of a Wally kind of coloring, it looks good, so I don't really care. The ironic thing is, and I wish I'm pretty sure I had him down here, the Wally West Flash figure. And he does reuse a lot of the same parts, so it would be fun to compare. Yeah, here he is. I found him. Since I got a box full of stuff down here. So I think that, I don't know if they did a new 52 Flash. Like this is basically a new 52 Flash, because he looked pretty much the same when they did Rebirth. I didn't change him up too much. But this body was used for the Rebirth Wally West figure. And then they used it for this one, the Titans Wally West figure. And ironically, I wish the color schemes were reversed. Because like I said, I think of this as being more of a Wally color scheme. And I think of this as more being a Barry color scheme. Oh, well, whatever. But you can see this one had the Flash emblem, again, based on the Justice League Unlimited version. Because that's Barry on that. Or that's Wally on that show. So he's got Wally's emblem, and Barry has the more Silver Age type Flash lightning bolt on there, although it still does have that yellow ring around it, which is more of a modern style thing. And then he's got the symmetrical belt. That's definitely a Wally type thing. And but like this is Barry's costume. Sorry, wrong one. This is Barry's costume that he wears in the New 52 and later. And like I said, the Rebirth version, it's pretty much the same. But yeah, the things that I think work better in live action, things like the chin strap worked on Grant Gustin. I don't necessarily like it so much in a comic book version. All this piping, all this seams, all this, extra superfluous nonsense. It doesn't need to be in a comic book. It complicates things. But it looks good in a TV show, doesn't it? It looks good in a movie. Looks good in a video game. And hell, it looks good on this action figure. I actually kind of like adding surface detail and things like that to the action figure. It gives it a little more verisimilitude. But as far as being an image on a comic book page, it's just more shit for the artist to draw. And comic book art, I kind of feel like should be simple, clean, easy to follow. I'm not saying everybody needs to draw comics exactly like Darwin Cook or Alex Toth or that sort of thing. But there's a reason that I consider such people to be masters. and the Jim Lee kind of hash marks and all that kind of stuff. The cross hatching, that's the word I'm looking for. It's nice. Oh, we blipped out for a second there. It's nice, but I mean, let's be real. Like, it just makes the page more complicated. You're trying to tell a story is the most important thing. Al Davis says he's an ape. You're looking at the Flash now. I do like apes, but I like the Flash more. Okay, that's cool. And Al Davis says Neil Patrick Harris did the voice too, didn't he? That's right. NPH was the voice of the Flash in speaking of Darwin Cook, the New Frontier animated movie, and I think he did a great job. I think NPH back in the day probably would have been a great Flash too. He would have been the perfect Barry Allen. I think he would have been, especially if you look at his performance in that. Barry Allen is not Wally West. He's not supposed to be a goofy character. He's supposed to be a more serious character, a more earnest character. And he was able to play that very well. You think of him doing a lot of like comedic type stuff. You think of, Barney Stinson, you think of Dr. Horrible. But I think back in the day of Doogie Howser. You remember Doogie Howser, MD? And like Doogie Howser would grow up to be a guy very much in personality, like how I imagine Barry Allen. So yeah, NPH would have been a great Flash back in the day. I'm just saying. And Bobby Walt says Ezra Miller kind of ruined the Flash with that goofy way he ran. He ran. It looked like the Elaine dance from Seinfeld. Yeah, he tended to like. Yeah, remember when he says that he does competitive ice dancing? Like maybe he actually does. And then Al Davis says Miller's run was awful. Was only elevated a bit when they took the piss out of it. It wasn't at all necessary if they'd employed an actor who actually learned to run. And then Al Davis says it took me a really long time to believe NPH was actually really gay. He was so convincing as a man slut in How I Met Your Mother. Hey, that's just what a great actor he is. Like, I'd had my mom. I watched How I Met Your Mother with my mom recently, and I kept pointing out little things he was doing as an actor, and I'm like, do you see why this guy's one of my favorite actors? Like the little choices he made, like little subtle things that he does, things that like no human being would really think of. And you see him, and it's just brilliant. He's just so great in that role. He's always great. Honestly, he's just a fantastic actor. But but with Barney, like he was able to create this character that was that should be like just an utterly repulsive human being, but you still find him lovable and endearing. And he gives him this kind of vulnerability that that's why I think Barney works as a character, is because like even when he does these horrible things, you realize that he's coming from a place of being like this kind of needy, damaged person, and you have like a little bit of sympathy for him, even as he does something just completely horrible. And yeah, Al says I got my mom into it too. Yeah, see, it's a great ensemble show, brilliantly funny. Yeah, every member of that cast is just gold. Like Kobe Smulders. I think they just kind of cast her because she was hot, because she's supposed to be the love interest. Turned out she's really incredibly funny too. So like, because you look at that in the earlier episodes, she's written almost like the straight man kind of character. But as the show goes on, they give her more funny stuff. Nobody asked you, Patrice. All that kind of stuff. They give her more funny stuff to do because they realize she can do it. And of course, Allison Hannigan is a brilliant actor. Like she does some great stuff, and she's almost like on that Neil Patrick level as far as like she can read a line in a certain way where like no other human being could read a line like that, and she just makes it sound funny or adorable or whatever she needs it to sound like. And Jason Segel's funny as hell, and he can bring it as far as like the serious acting too when he needs to. And Josh Radnor, man, that dude is like a classically trained, like in the Shakespearean style. Like I remember him talking about how like he knows how to sword fight because he learned how to do it like during his acting training. But he made the decision for the sword fight Ted does not know how to do this, does not know how to sword fight. So he's sword fighting badly on purpose. Like, I'm gonna give Josh Radnor one of the highest compliments that I could possibly give an actor, because I'm going to compare him to another one of my favorite actors and one of my favorite television shows of all time. If I was going to do a remake of the old Incredible Hulk TV series, and I needed a new actor to play Dr. David Banner, a guy that I feel like could be the worthy successor to Bill Bixby, who is just a fantastic, and he's so great on that show. He's so great as David Banner on the Incredible Hulk. Josh Radnor would be my David Banner. That's who I would cast as Dr. David Banner, because I think he could pull it off. Yeah. And Al Davis says, I still get the Josh Radnor newsletter, he writes. Yeah, God, what was that called again? Because I watched the podcast, or I listened to the podcast on Spotify now, because it's not on YouTube anymore. But the How We Made Your Mother podcast, it's really good. And they mentioned the newsletter. So yeah, I don't know how I do the Hulk. Maybe I would go old school and actually have a bodybuilder, like just try to get like a big bodybuilder, and I'd want like a classic look of the body, not like now where they're all bulgy and round and they look like they're puffed up like balloons. I'd want a guy in the classic style like Lou Ferrigno if I could find one, and that would get that to be the Hulk. Or you could do the Hulk in CGI nowadays. But I kind of think part of the charm of the old show is that you have an actual human being playing the Hulk. And I don't know, maybe God, who would I get for Jack McGee? Oh, Carl Urban. Carl Urban should be Jack McGee. That would be really cool. Or oh God, what was the guy's name from drawing a blank on the guy's name. Walt Goggins. Walt Goggins. Yeah, I would get Walt Goggins to be Jack McGee. He would be the perfect Jack McGee. Yeah, and it could still take place, be do as a period show, still take it. I think it would work better in the 70s and 80s, because you got this guy going from town to town and picking up all these jobs, and it's like with no references and no ID, and like that's the sort of thing, like in the 70s and 80s I could buy that. Like, oh, this guy seems nice enough, I'll let him join as a dishwasher or janitor or something like that. And but nowadays it's like, no, it's like well, I need to do a background check on you and all this kind of crap, and check out, try to find David Bannister on social media. I can't find nothing on this David Belson guy. It's like he don't even exist. Yeah, Walton Goggins. Yeah. He should. Yeah. So that would be just be a good, even if you weren't a fan of the original show or a fan of the Hulk, like I could see that being just a fan, because people would watch that show just because these guys are good actors. I just want to see what they do. And then Bobby Waltz says, didn't they just greenlight the second movie for Dredd with Carl Urban? Oh God, I hope you're right about that. I don't know. I hadn't heard anything about that myself, but I hope you're right about that. So it looks like to me that his boots are painted gold, like they not use gold. Plastic, they actually painted the plastic. It might be gold plastic underneath, I don't know. But I'm figuring it's probably red plastic underneath. Can't really tell. But they painted it, and then probably because they had to paint it on the boot part on the calf anyway. But I like stuff painted gold usually better than stuff that's molded in gold, because it looks a little bit more solid to me. That's just my opinion on that personally. Al Davis says, Bobby, don't be mobilized. My lips just got hard like chimpanzee thumbs. Dude, yeah, I would love to see a second Dredd movie. That would be great. Or the streaming show or something like that. I think it's been long enough they can try Judge Dredd again, even though that one was considered a financial failure. And if you're going to cast Judge Dredd again, you might as well get the guy who did an awesome job with it last time. So, and the great thing about Judge Dredd is the comic book actually goes in real time. So Judge Dredd could be an older guy. Like, he's an older guy in the comics now. You could cast an older guy to play Judge Dredd. It wouldn't even really matter. You could cast a guy like in his, late 20s or so, to be Judge Dredd and have like, you know, Judge Dredd when he's first starting out, or you could go to like, you know, when he's in his mid 30s and he's in his absolute prime, his absolute peak, or you could go so far as like how old he is now, where like he would be like, God, what, 70, 80? Judge Dredd would be right now. He's probably about my mom's age. He's probably about Sylvester Stallone's age, honestly. Sylvester Stallone probably was like on paper, I can see why they cast him as Judge Dredd. And you know, like apparently visually he was based off of Judge Dredd, or Judge Dredd was based off of him with like the big chin and everything. But the problem is he was such a big star that like he's just gonna wear the helmet for like 5 seconds, and then because we're paying for Sylvester Stallone, we want to see his face, kind of thing. Yeah. Al Davis says, does Robert Z, does he have a, I don't know. Bring Alex Garland back, get Sly Stallone to play I see what you're, okay, yes. I think I know what you're talking about now. What's that guy's name? Armand, what's the actor's name that played the bad guy in that? It's Armand something, I think. I'm trying to, he's a good actor. He's been in a lot of stuff. He played Mike Hammer in a movie once. Maniac Cop, giant. Oh, I know who you're talking. Yeah, I know who you're talking about now. Okay, yeah. He could have done it. The thing about Judge Dredd is like, I think that's an actor that like, yeah, that's a character that, like, you don't necessarily need like a great actor to play Judge Dredd so much as you need a presence. You know what I mean? Armand Assante. Yeah, see, I'm drawing. He's a good actor. I like Armand Assante, but I was just drawing a blank on his name. So, and he was Odysseus in that TV movie a while back, like back in the 90s, I think. So yeah. Anyway, going back to the Flash figure, I really like this design for a Flash figure. And like I said, a lot of the stuff is stuff that I'd be critical about and have been critical about on the comic book design, but on an action figure, it looks great. And like I said, I kind of feel like that's the real reason they redesigned the Flash and all these new 52 characters. They were designing them to make, you know, look good in live action and video game and cool toys first, and, you know, making them look good on the comic book page second. And I think that's ass backwards. I think the best thing to do is make them look cool on the comic book page. And then when somebody goes to make an action figure, you know, let them go nuts with it. You know, they can do things like surface detail and things like that. Like if the Flash in the comic book looked exactly like how Carmine Infantino drew him, he could still look like this in the action figure. And I'd be totally cool with that. So let's go ahead and talk about his articulation somewhat. And the Flash can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders. They got the butterfly joint, so we'll wiggle it all around that way. Arms raise up to the sides about that far. He's got a bicep cut, so the bicep rotates all the way around. He's got a double jointed elbow. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbow. He's still got these extra peg holes in his arms, so we can attach the lightning bolts on there, even though he doesn't come with any lightning bolts. But if you're like me and you bought a bunch of those Rebirth Wally West figures when they were marked down at Walmart, you've got some extra lightning bolts. So that's cool. And he's got this great Mcfarlane torso articulation where he moves back and forth like so, from side to side, I should say, and then back and forth all the way back like that, all the way forward like that. Rotates all the way around where the abs meet the rib cage and where the abs meet the trunks. So great job there. Alex plays here and says, you mainly collect only DC? Oh no, I collect a whole bunch of stuff. We just did like pretty much almost a whole month of Masters of the Universe leading up to the movie. So yeah, I do He-Man and G.I. Joe, and I'd say my main things is He-Man, G.I. Joe, and DC. And I do collect Marvel stuff, but I don't collect as much Marvel stuff as I used to because I kind of feel like I have all the Marvel Legends characters at this point, and they don't put out that many more, and they're really expensive. Now I do occasionally find a new Marvel Legends character that tickles my fancy, and I will be opening up this guy sometime in the near future. I have the brown version of Hugh Jackman from Wolverine and Deadpool. And of course, the brown Wolverine costume. That's the one that I grew up with. So I always appreciate that brown costume. So he's going to get opened up at some point in the future. I've done a lot of Ninja Turtles. I like Ninja Turtles. But yeah, I do open a lot of DC stuff because I do love my superheroes, and Batman's my favorite character of all time. So I like to open a lot of Batman stuff, and I like to open something of Flash Gordon anytime I can, because I love me some Flash Gordon. So Al Diva says, I got a white version. I renamed him the Supremacist. Look, you can't be supreme if you don't have sour cream and tomatoes. That's all I'm saying. Like I learned that from Taco Bell. Like to be really to really be supreme, you got to have sour cream and tomatoes. So that's all I'm saying. Bobby Wald says, I was thinking of figuring that Blade figure so I can make the one character Simon from Demolition Man. Yes, speaking of Sylvester Stallone, my personal favorite Sylvester Stallone movie, or at least a very close second to Rocky 3. Like, it's one of those two. And the original Rocky is probably the best Sylvester Stallone movie, and then maybe my third, maybe my fourth after First Blood. But my most favorite of the Rocky movies is Rocky 3, because Mr. T. I love Mr. T. He's one of my heroes, you know. So, and he's so great as the antagonist in that movie. I'm not gonna call him the villain. I'm gonna call him the antagonist. You know, I go back and I watch that movie, and every time I watch it, like, I root a little bit for Clubber Lang at that first fight that they have. I do actually root a little bit for Clubber Lang, and it's not because I don't like Rocky. I love Rocky. It's because I love Rocky that I'm actually rooting for Clubber Lang, because Rocky's let himself get soft, and he's got to get back that eye of the tiger. So I want Clubber Lang to win that fight, because I want Rocky to have something that he needs to fight for. You know what I mean? And if he doesn't lose that fight, he doesn't get trained by Apollo Creed, and they don't really become friends, you know? And that to me is another one of the things that makes that such a beautiful movie. I love Rocky 3 so much. Rocky 3 is my favorite, easily, of the Rocky movies. And then the original Rocky, which is a masterpiece, is my second favorite. And then, I don't know, maybe Rocky 2, I think, would come after that. Rocky 4, I think it's good, but I think it's a little overrated. Like I think it's one of those things where, like, people like it because of more like how it makes them feel than you know, it being like a great story or anything. Like, I like Rocky 3. I'm not trying to badmouth it. I like Rocky 3. And then Rocky 5, I like the other 4 movies an awful lot. And then, of course, you got Rocky Balboa, which I kind of consider its own thing. That was a fine film. And Creed, where we got a whole spin-off franchise from Rocky, with Adonis Creed carrying on his father's legacy, and that's some pretty cool stuff. I really like Creed. I thought Creed was a pretty great movie. So anyway, enough. I got way off on a tangent there, didn't I? And then Al Davis is not really. I'm going to custom into a Nemesis, better size to fit with a remote control, 110 scale Audi car, and I'm steadily whitening the with white I don't know how to pronounce it, Posca pens. That sounds like a very interesting project. I'd like to see it once it gets done. But yeah, you know, so yeah, the White Vision figure. I would imagine what the Vision would turn into Nemesis fairly easily. You just kind of paint a little bit of flesh color here, paint a little bit of flesh color over his chin, and call it a day. I guess maybe swap out his feet so he don't have toes. But yeah, it's like that would definitely be a good basis for Nemesis. I could see somebody just looking at that and be like, you know what? I could do Nemesis out of this. Simon Phoenix. Oh, Grudge Match. That's the movie I was trying to think about the other day, because when I was visiting my mom, they were watching The Fighter, you know, with Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale. That's a really good movie. And they were so they were watching that movie, And I was really enjoying it, and I was thinking to myself how it's really hard these days to make a boxing movie that's not just remaking Rocky, because Rocky is so the definitive boxing movie. But they found a way to do it. They found a way to make a really good, interesting boxing movie that obviously had some influence from Rocky, because how could you avoid it? But it wasn't like, let's just remake Rocky again, like a lot of boxing movies are. And and Cinderella Man was another one that I thought of, and I had thought of Grudge Match, but I couldn't remember the title of it, and I always just kind of thought of it as kind of like the high concept of it that it was in my head, where it's basically like Rocky versus Raging Bull, like the Rocky Balboa Jake LaMotta crossover. Which that's what people were thinking when they were starting to make it, even if even if that's not technically what it is, at least on some level that's what it is. And acrylic markers, okay. I'm trying to recreate one of the Nemesis covers. Yeah, I think I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, Grudge Match was a good movie. So some good non-Rocky boxing movies that you may enjoy. Grudge Match and The Fighter and Cinderella Man. Those are three that I would definitely recommend. And if you're watching this in the replay and you made it this far, leave a comment and let me know some of your other favorite boxing movies and why you enjoyed them and what aspects of them you liked best. And then Bobby Wald says, for Raging Bull, Robert De Niro actually trained as a boxer and got into real matches and won something like 5 out of 6 of them. Good on Bobby. All right. And then Al Davis says, when will Marvel release an Adolf figure to recreate the cat punching him cover? I'm guessing never, because even if Marvel Comics might have done that back in the 80s, like I don't think they would have done it anytime near now. Hell, like Disney Plus don't even want to put up the episode of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends that has the Red Skull in it, because it's got Hitler in it, so, and swastikas and all that kind of crazy stuff. So I would say custom your own. I would say get yourself, they've got some Red Skull figures where like the uniforms are close enough, and probably if you look on some website like cults3d.com, I bet we could find an Adolf Hitler head that we could put onto an action figure. And even if I couldn't find one, yeah, really, they won't show that episode. They will not show that episode, which is a shame, because like I love that show. The Nazis are supposed to be the bad guys, right? We're supposed to root against them. They're bad guys in that episode. Like, I remember they stopped doing the swastika type stuff on the Red Skull because there is that Marvel Universe trading card where he was wearing like a full SS uniform and a big Nazi flag waving in the background, and some stupid dad complained about it, saying, I don't want to have to explain to my son what a swastika is. No, you should absolutely explain to your son what a swastika is. Your kid needs to know these things so that history doesn't repeat itself. That's why we learn history. He needs to learn that there was an evil organization of people in the 1930s that wanted to conquer the world, and they wanted to kill off an entire race of people because of some insane prejudice that they had, and we beat them. We defeated them. That's what you tell your kid when you explain to them what a swastika is, and then you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and you have a good time. It's also like the dad that complained, how do I explain this to my kid when he's talking about the Princess Leia and the gold bikini from Return of the Jedi? And I'm like, you haven't let your kid watch Return of the Jedi? What the fuck is wrong with you? Somebody ought to call DFAX. That's child abuse right there. Like my kid would be like, hey, come right out of his mother's womb, and I'd be there with my phone with Star Wars like immediately. Al Davis says, for Raiders of the Lost Ark, they'll CGI and composite in huge censored blocks over the Nazis. Yeah, see, they got Raiders of the Lost Ark up on Disney Plus right now, don't they? They don't censor that. Why can't I get my Spider-Man episode with the Red Skull in it? Explain that to me. Explain to me how that makes sense. If nothing else, put like a little warning blurb on the front of it, like you put on Muppets episodes, because God knows, like, honestly, I take that as a compliment, though. The Muppets are supposed to be edgy and rebellious, so they should have a disclaimer warning on there. Oh, I noticed also he does have this little hole in his back. So remember how we were talking about having a figure stand that you could plug into a figure's back? Well, you can do that with this guy too, so that's cool. Anyway, getting back to the articulation, which I got distracted from, the Flash can do a hell of a kick. Look at that. And you know, if there's one superhero that you want to be extremely limber and able to move his legs, it's the Flash, the guy who's constantly running everywhere. And why don't we, while we're at it, see if we can get him into like a really cool running pose. And yeah, I know we can do it because, like I said, I've already opened what's basically the same exact figure at least twice. But we haven't done it with this figure yet, have we? So let's go ahead and get him all twisted into a running pose. Try to get him to look awesome. Hell yeah, there we go. But getting back to the rest of the articulation, there we can again see that he has double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion we get at the knees. And he's got the cool Mcfarlane ball jointed articulation at the ankles and wrists. So we can move these around pretty much any which way we wanted to. I don't know if I mentioned the wrist articulation, but he does have the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation and ankle articulation, and he's pretty awesome. And since I didn't mention it before, he can do the splits no problem. Hey, look at that. It's Jumping Jack Flash. One thing that I do notice is kind of disappointing on this figure, and I didn't really notice it in person. It's not that apparent to me in person, but when I see him on the monitor, I'm sure you guys can see this too, is like his knees and his calves are a slightly different shade of red from the rest of his body, and that is unfortunate. And then Al Davis says, well, sometime blood rushes to the... Yeah, you can explain that to him when he's 13. Al Davis says, I have the Justice League Flash figure. He's in a running pose in the box. It's super cool. Hell yeah. The animated series one, yeah. That one is I think, still really cheap to find. And it's a nice figure, but I didn't buy that one because like it just didn't fit aesthetically in with the rest of the Mcfarlane figures, where, like, you know, they're sculpted to look a little more, I don't think realistic as but they've got more of that detail to them. And I kind of feel like if the rest of the Justice League was easier to find and I could put together a full Justice League. I know that it's Superman and it's easy to get the Superman in the black outfit, but I don't see the red and blue outfit around too much. And I know that a Batman in a blue and gray outfit, and that's awesome. And if I buy any of those, I'm probably going to buy that one. But I don't know how easy he is to find right now. And I know they did Jon Stewart, but he doesn't seem like he's that common. But I don't think they did Wonder Woman. I don't think they did Hawk Girl. And I don't think they did the Martian Manhunter. And if I was going to have an animated Justice League in my 7-inch Mcfarlane series, I would definitely want to have all 7 of the main characters. And, you know, there's other characters I like to have too. Green Arrow, The Question, Booster Gold. Like, you know, really name any character that was in Justice League Unlimited, and I'd probably want a figure of them. Bobby Wald says, you need to have somebody do a Disney movie reaction video using Statler and Waldorf. What do you think of The Mandalorian? It wasn't half bad. You're right. It was all bad. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love those guys. So, oh, man. So it seems like this ankle might be a little stuck. No, it's just kind of tight. I got it loose. Al Davis says, does your figure today have toe bending? Oh, I forgot. Yeah, he's got toe articulation just to show off. There we go. There, that's all the articulation now, I promise. Al Davis says, I have the Flash one. They go the BTAS black and gray, the blue and gray one too, and the Superman from Superman, the animated series one too. Awesome. Yeah, like I said, I'd probably buy more of those if they did more of those. Oh, and they did Harley Quinn also. They haven't done like a classic comic book style Harley Quinn, but they did do the animated one. So but I don't think she's too easy to find right now. So anyway, I think that's it for the Flash and Titano, and we can see what they scale like together. So Titano obviously should be a bit larger, but they can only make these figures so big. So, but this is probably about the size that the Peter Jackson King Kong is, because he was a little on the smaller side as far as Kongs go. I think that like maybe even a little bigger than that. So yeah, like I want to say Peter Jackson Kong was supposed to be like 25 feet tall, and in the original movie he's supposed to be 50 feet tall, and likewise the Dino De Laurentiis remake, and obviously the Toho version was supposed to be much larger because he was supposed to be Godzilla sized, and the legendary version grows, and he's much larger in Kong Skull Island than he would have been in the 1930s, and obviously much larger when you get to Godzilla versus Kong, and again he's got to stand with Kong. So just been born Kong, Prince Kong. Yeah, I guess they don't call him King Kong in the legendary movies because they don't have the rights to the name King Kong. They're able to get around like I think certain legal loopholes just by calling him Kong. I think that's also why the toys that were made for the Peter Jackson King Kong back in 2005, you'll notice that those are not labeled King Kong as the movie was labeled King Kong. They're simply labeled Kong. So, it's kind of funny. I don't know. But anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about both Titano and the Flash. And if you think that's as odd a pairing as I do, hey, it's what we got, though. And they're both nice figures. I just kind of feel like they probably should have been partnered with other characters. We probably should have got more of a Flash versus Grodd set and a Superman versus Titano set. But Al Davis says Kong is different enough to not get sued by the Kong folks. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.